They found the body 3 feet from her journal. She had not tried to reach it. Oh, whatever came for her at the end, she did not spend her final moments crawling toward the one thing she had spent her entire life building. She simply stopped. Oh, the journal stayed where she had left it, open, stylus beside it, the last entry unfinished. A small curved mark at the bottom of the page, the beginning of a letter that never became a word. Oh, 7,000 years later, Sith scholars would argue about what that mark was trying to say. None of them thought to ask why she let go. But that is the end, and she would have hated starting there. Oh, she was precise about beginnings. She believed that where you chose to start a thing determined everything that followed. The angle of entry, she called it in her notes, the first cut. Oh, a bad first cut and the whole dissection drifts. You spend the rest of your work chasing an error you made before you understood what you were looking at. So start here instead. Start in the dark. Oh, start with her hands. Coraban, year 1 of the exile reckoning. The 9th of Kanthurak, first dark. Oh, she is sitting on the floor of a stone room that does not belong to her, in a structure the native Sith abandoned decades ago. For reasons no one has translated for her yet, the walls are thick. Oh, the air smells of mineral dust and something older. Something the rock has been holding for so long it has become part of the rock. Oh, outside, the valley is the color of a wound that hasn't decided whether to close. She is writing, not in the old Republic script she was trained in. Oh, not in the native Sith cuneiform she has spent 3 weeks beginning to decode from temple walls and clay tablets left in corners. Oh, she is writing in something she made herself. A hybrid script, a borrowed thing, letters from 3 different systems stitched together into a 4th thing that belongs to none of them. Oh, she will later claim this was practical, that neither existing script contained the right phonemes for the technical vocabulary she needed. This is partially true. Oh, the fuller truth is that writing in the Republic script felt like sending a letter back to people who had already told her she did not exist. Oh, and writing in the Sith script felt like wearing someone else's name. She needed a script that was only hers, something no one else could read without her permission. Oh, she had been expelled for her ideas. She was not going to let someone else own her words. The stylus she is using is wrong for stone. Oh, it was made for Republic data slates, a fine-tipped instrument designed for smooth synthetic surfaces, not for the coarse volcanic rock she has pressed into service as a journal page. Oh, each stroke requires more pressure than it should. Each letter costs something small and physical. By the 3rd line of the first entry, her fingers ache. She does not stop. Oh, the first line she writes, in this invented script, in this abandoned room, on this planet that hums beneath her like a creature in a very deep sleep, is not a declaration. It is not a manifesto. Oh, later scholars expecting the birth of Sith philosophy will be confused by it. It reads, "The stone here is not like Coruscant stone. Nothing here is like anything there." Oh, I am noting this so I remember to stop comparing. That is the beginning of the tomes of Sorzus Syn, a woman reminding herself to stop looking back. Oh, she had arrived on Coraban 26 days earlier with 7 other people she had not chosen and would not have chosen, aboard a vessel that smelled of scorched insulation and fear that everyone was, pretending was something else. 8 Dark Jedi, expelled from the Republic. Oh, crossing beyond the edge of known space with everything they owned and the absolute certainty that what they were leaving behind had already decided they were dead. Oh, the journey had taken 11 weeks in hyperspace. Oh, 11 weeks in a ship that held 8 of the most Force-sensitive people alive, all of them furious, all of them grieving, all of them handling it differently and badly. Oh, Ajunapal had spent the journey in meditation, or what he presented as meditation. The long stillness of a man organizing his anger into something usable. The others had argued, wept, trained, paced, and in 2 cases nearly killed each other over disagreements that had nothing to do with what they were actually upset about. She had understood this, the displacement of the real grief onto smaller, safer targets. She had understood it and still found it exhausting. She had spent the journey writing. Not the tomes, those would not begin until Coraban. On the ship she had written what she later described only as preparatory notes, and which no scholar has ever located, which suggests she destroyed them before, or shortly after landing. What they contained is not known. What they likely contained. Everything she had not been able to say at the hearing. The hearing had lasted 1 standard day. She had prepared for it for 3 months, compiled documentation, constructed arguments, anticipative objections, written responses to every counterpoint the council was likely to raise. She had been thorough. She had been, she believed, irrefutable. She had stood in the center of the council chamber, that circular room with its ring of elevated seats, designed so that whoever stood in the middle always had to turn to face whoever was speaking. Always had to keep moving, never entirely still, and she had made her case. The dark side was not inherently corrupting. The Jedi Order's refusal to study it was not wisdom. It was fear wearing the name of wisdom. The doctrines she was developing were not a path toward darkness. They were a map of territory that already existed, that force-sensitive beings were already drawn to, and that the Order's silence about had already cost them more students than they were willing to count. She had said all of this clearly, specifically, with evidence. Master Veritas, the one whose opinion she had wanted most, the one who had read her earliest papers and told her they showed a quality of mind he rarely encountered, had listened to all of it. He had listened the way she had always hoped someone would listen, fully, without interrupting, with his eyes actually on her and not on the report in his hands. When she finished, he had said, "The reasoning is extraordinary. The destination is not somewhere we can follow you." And then he had voted. She had not written about this since, not on the ship. Not in the preparatory notes that no longer existed, not in the first entry on Coraban's stone. She had not written about his face when he said it. She had not written about the quality of the silence after, the way it had a texture, that silence, something between cloth and stone. She had not written about whether she had understood in that moment that the destination he was describing was not just a philosophical position. It was her. She was the destination they could not follow. She writes none of this on the stone floor of the abandoned Sith shelter on the 9th of Khan-Thurak in the First Dark. She writes instead about the planet. She writes about how the rock conducts sensation in a way she does not have a framework for yet. Not temperature exactly, not vibration exactly. Something that sits between the two and belongs to, neither. She writes about the way the dark side here feels unfinished, like standing inside a sentence that has not yet decided what it is saying. She writes about the smell of the air, the specific quality of the silence outside, the way the stone walls of this room seem to absorb sound rather than reflect it, so that her own breathing, disappears almost immediately after it leaves her. She writes 3 full pages before she stops. She reads them back by feel. She has no light, has not lit any light, does not entirely know why she has been sitting in the dark, except that the dark here does not feel hostile. It feels like it is paying attention. She makes 2 corrections to the 2nd page. She leaves the 3rd page as it is, which is unusual for her. She will note in a later entry that she rarely leaves a first draft unrevised. Something about the third page, she writes, already sounds like what I mean. She closes the journal. She sets the stylus beside it, still wet. She places her palm flat against the floor. Oh, Coraban presses back, not forcefully, not with menace. The dark side beneath this rock is not organized yet. Centuries of Sith burial and ritual and deliberate cultivation have not yet happened. Oh, what she is feeling is something rawer than what this planet will eventually become. Oh, something she will later call the unformed hunger, in a passage scholars will debate for millennia. The dark side, before it had been given names, before it had been shaped by the weight of everyone, who would come after her and die here and be laid into this ground. She is feeling it before it knows what it is. Oh, and here is the thing her journals never quite say directly, only circle around in the careful way she circled around everything that cost her something. It feels like being listened to. Oh, not answered. The dark side does not answer. It does not offer comfort or clarity or the warmth of being understood. Oh, but it is paying attention to her in the complete, unblinking way that nothing in her previous life ever had. Not the Order, not the Masters, not the one who called her work extraordinary, and then, voted her into exile. It is just present, fully, without judgment and without mercy, and without the particular cruelty of seeing something clearly and choosing it anyway to be insufficient. Oh, she does not name this yet. She sits with her palm against the cold stone for a long time. Outside, the middle dark deepens. The red sky above the valley holds its color. Oh, the valley is silent in all the ways a place is silent when it has been waiting for something and believes, finally, that it has arrived. In the morning, she will begin the real work. Oh, in the morning she will walk the valley, speak her first words of broken Sith to the first king priest who approaches her. Note the color of the dust and the structure of the rock formations, and the way the force pools in certain low places, like something heavy seeking the lowest point. In the morning, she will be efficient and purposeful, and begin building the thing she came here to build. But tonight she just sits, her hand flat against the floor, the journal closed beside her, the stylus still wet. In the rock beneath her palm, something that is not yet an empire, not yet a tradition, not yet a name that anyone will say with reverence or fear, something that is only the raw and patient dark, moves slowly, like a thought forming, like a memory that does not know yet what it is remembering. She feels it. For the first time in longer than she will ever admit, she does not feel alone. She does not write about this. She never writes about this. But the warmth she does not feel from the stone, the warmth that is completely absent, that is cold in a way that has stopped being only temperature, will be the first thing she notices is missing. When she thinks sometimes of what Coruscant felt like, before she makes herself stop thinking about it, before she trains herself, entry by entry, page by page, in the discipline of only looking forward, she closes her eyes in the dark, and Coraban remembers her. The last beacon light died at the 4th hour of final dark. Nobody marked it. Nobody spoke. 7 people in that vessel were either asleep or pretending to be, and the one who was neither stood at the narrow viewport and watched the small green pulse disappear into the distance until the distance itself disappeared, and there was nothing left in any direction but the particular black of deep space, the kind that has no depth, no texture, no suggestion that anything exists beyond it. The green light had been the last proof that the Republic was real. Now it was a memory, and memories, as she had learned recently, were not the same as proof. To understand what she became, you have to understand what she was before the crossing. Not powerful, not dangerous, not the architect of 1,000 years of Sith bloodline and alchemical doctrine, that would outlast every empire built on top of it. Oh, before all of that, before the red dust and the abandoned stone rooms and the stylus moving across volcanic rock in a script nobody else could read, there was a researcher in sub-level 14 of the Jedi Temple Archives on Coruscant, arriving before first breath every single morning, because that particular hour, when the archive lighting was still warming and the lower levels held a specific quality of silence, was when thinking came most easily. This is documented. 3 separate colleagues mentioned it in later testimony. She arrived before anyone else. She stayed after everyone left. And in between, she read everything the Order had decided was too dangerous to teach. Not secretly. That is the part histories tend to omit. She requested access through proper channels, filed the correct documentation, cited her research objectives with precision. The temple librarians processed her requests. The senior archivists reviewed her access logs regularly. Nobody stopped her. For 11 years, nobody stopped her. The question she was pursuing had a deceptively simple surface. The Jedi Order taught that the dark side corrupted. That contact with it, prolonged study, deliberate engagement, sustained attention, degraded the practitioner, twisted perception, hollowed judgment. The doctrine was ancient, consistent, and treated as self-evident in the same way that gravity was treated as self-evident. You did not need to argue it, you simply pointed at the results. She had looked at the results, and what the results actually showed, when examined without the layer of doctrine over the top, was more complicated than the doctrine admitted. Not every force-sensitive who touched the darkness fell. Not every practitioner who studied its mechanisms was destroyed by the study. The historical record was full of cases the Order explained away individually. This one was an anomaly. That one's fall had other causes. This third example didn't count because, and she had spent 11 years collecting these explained-away cases and laying them beside each other until the pattern became impossible to ignore. The darkness was not a trapdoor. It was a territory, unmapped. Dangerous in the way unmapped territories were always dangerous, because the danger came from ignorance, not from the territory itself. A jungle was not evil. It was simply a place where the unprepared died. She had written this argument across 4 years and 6 papers, each more precise than the last. The 6th paper, the one that finally reached the High Council, was the clearest thing she had ever produced. 73 pages, every claim sourced, every counter-argument addressed. Every implication followed to its logical conclusion. The conclusion was not that Jedi should embrace the dark side. The conclusion was that the Order's refusal to understand it was costing them students they could not afford to lose. The papers had a particular smell. This is a strange thing to record, but the tomes contain it. A brief passage in Volume 2, where she describes the physical experience of working in sub-level 14, and mentions, without explanation or sentiment, that the archive had a smell she has never encountered anywhere since. Dust, yes. Old binding material. Something metallic from the data storage units. But underneath all of that, something she describes only as the scent of other people's thinking, the accumulated residue of 10,000 scholars who had sat in those same seats and wrestled with the same fundamental questions about the Force and what it meant to be inside it. She missed that smell. She would not write this in the tomes for another 30 years. And even then, she would write it in the margins of an alchemical treatise, in smaller letters than everything around it, as if hoping no one would notice. Master Veritas had an office 2 levels above the archive. His name appears nowhere in the tomes. She never wrote it, Not once, not in any volume, not even in the passages where his presence is unmistakable. Oh. Later scholars assigned him the designation Veritas because of how she described his approach to knowledge. Someone who believed that truth had an obligation to be useful, that understanding something, came with a responsibility to act on the understanding. She had respected this. More than respected, she had organized her entire methodology around it. The discipline of following an argument wherever it led, regardless of where you hoped it would go. The refusal to stop a chain of reasoning because the conclusion was uncomfortable. His office held 2 chairs. Not the standard single visitor chair most masters maintained, 2 equal, facing each other at a slight angle, not a desk between them. Nothing hierarchical in the arrangement at all. She had sat in the second chair 41 times over 5 years. She had counted. She counted things like this without deciding to. In that chair, in that office, she had argued every major position in the 6th paper before writing a word of it. He had pushed back on every claim, questioned every source, found every weak seam in the argument, and pressed on it until she either reinforced it or abandoned it. Not to undermine her, to make the work stronger. That was what she believed. That was what she had believed for 5 years. The 42nd time she sat in that chair was the day before the hearing. He had read the complete 6th paper by then, all 73 pages. She could tell from the quality of his questions, the way he moved through the argument's architecture, not hunting for weakness but following the structure she had built, testing it the way you tested a bridge by walking its full length. At the end, he had set the document on the small table between the chairs, not his side, exactly in the center, and said, "This is the most carefully constructed argument I have read in 30 years of reading arguments." A pause. It will not matter. She had heard the words. She had not understood them yet. The council does not make decisions by being persuaded, he continued. It makes decisions by determining what the order can survive believing. Your paper asks the order to survive believing something it has already decided it cannot. She had asked him if he agreed with the decision. He had not answered that question. He had looked at her in a way that contained several things simultaneously. Something she read as genuine respect, something that might have been grief, and something else entirely that she would not identify until years later on a red dust planet, sitting alone in a dark room, when it would come to her suddenly and completely. It had been recognition. He had known already that she would not stop. And he had known what that meant, and he had not warned her. The next morning, in the council chamber, he had listened to her speak for 6 hours without interrupting once, and then he had voted. The exile vessel smelled of scorched insulation and recycled air, and the particular sourness of people under sustained stress. 8 people, 11 weeks, a ship designed for 5 at comfortable capacity. 3 weeks in, she had found a corner of the cargo hold that nobody else used. Too cold, too close to the engine cycling. A persistent vibration in the floor that made extended sitting, uncomfortable. She had brought her traveling journal and a thin thermal layer and sat in that uncomfortable corner every day for the remaining 8 weeks of the crossing. Not to avoid the others. She was not, by nature, a person who needed to avoid people. More precisely, she needed to be somewhere she could think without managing anyone else's fear, and the rest of the ship was full of people whose fear had nowhere to go and was therefore contagious. The way contained things became contagious. In the cargo hold, she wrote. The traveling journal was small, Republic issue, smooth synthetic pages, her old clear script because she had not yet invented the new one. 70 pages. She filled all of them. What she wrote, observations. The behavior of the Force in deep space, which was different from its behavior on populated worlds, thinner, somehow, or more diffuse, like a signal losing strength with distance from its source. The interpersonal dynamics of the 7 others, noted with the same clinical precision she had applied to archive research. The way Ajunapal's silences occupied more space than most people's words. The way 2 of the others had already begun what would later become a formalized rivalry, neither of them aware yet that they were doing it. What she did not write, the hearing. Master Veritas. The second chair in his office. The smell of sub-level 14. The green pulse of the last Republic beacon that she had been watching for 3 weeks from a viewport nobody else used at that hour. The absence was deliberate. A wound you do not describe does not heal, but it also does not spread. She was keeping it contained through silence, through the discipline of only recording what was ahead of her, through the choice, made consciously, remade every day, to let the life she had been expelled from exist only as the unwritten space at the back of every page. On the last night before Coraban's gravity caught them, she sat at the cargo hold viewport and looked at the traveling journal. Her own handwriting looked unfamiliar, though not in any dramatic sense. The letters were correct, the spacing consistent, the hand still recognizably hers. But something in the quality of the script had changed between the first entry and the last, in a way she could feel without being able to precisely name. The early entries were the handwriting of someone who expected to be read. The later ones were something else. She turned to the last blank page, pressed her palm flat against it, the paper soft and slightly warm where it had been held, nothing like stone, nothing like what was waiting below. Wrote nothing. Closed the record. Through the viewport, the planet came into view, red, still. A world that looked as though it had been waiting in exactly this position for a very specific arrival, and had simply not bothered to move in the interim. Behind her, she heard the others waking. The sounds of 7 people registering the same sight from different viewports. The murmur of voices that were trying to sound like they contained purpose, like arrival was a kind of answer. Nobody looked at her. Nobody ever really looked at her. The green light of the last Republic beacon had died hours ago. In its place, this, a bruised red horizon. A valley below that pressed upward against perception like a held breath. She pressed her hand to the viewport glass, cold, completely without give. Below, the red dust shifted in a wind she could not yet feel. Something in the rock moved, not physically, not in any way the instruments registered. Only in the part of her that had always been more honest than the rest. The part that had spent 11 years in a sub-level archive reading everything the Order called too dangerous to teach. That part recognized what was below. Not the darkness, not the hunger, not any of the words she would later use. Just territory. Unmapped, patient, completely indifferent to whether she was ready. She picked up the traveling journal, set it inside her pack, stood up. The cargo hold vibrated around her as the vessel began its descent. She did not look back at the viewport, though the planet rose to meet her anyway. The vote took 4 minutes. 4 minutes to decide who would lead the first Sith Empire. 4 minutes to determine whose name would be spoken first in every dark temple built on this world for the next 7,000 years. 4 minutes in a stone room with no light except what the Force itself seemed to leak through the cracks in the walls. A dull, reddish luminescence that had no visible source, and that 3 of the 8 exiles had already stopped questioning, because questioning it required acknowledging what it meant. She had known the outcome before anyone spoke. Not through precognition, through attention. The simple, disciplined practice of watching people carefully enough that their decisions became predictable long before they made them. Ajunapal would lead. The remaining 6 votes, hers included, were not choices. They were acknowledgments of something already decided by the weight of the man's presence in any room he occupied. To vote against him would have required a coalition. A coalition required trust. And trust among 8 people who had been expelled from everything they knew and dropped onto a hostile world with nothing between them and extinction except forcibility and mutual necessity. Trust was the one resource nobody had thought to pack. She voted in favor. Pressed her mark into the clay tablet they were using because no one had thought to bring proper voting materials, which told her something important about how prepared this group actually was for the thing they were attempting to build. The clay was still soft. The mark she left was clean. She noted this later. Not the vote, but the texture of the clay. The way it gave under pressure without resistance. The way it held the shape of whatever was pressed into it and then hardened around that shape permanently. She noted this and moved on. The entry in the tomes from that night is unlike anything else in the entire collection. Every other entry Sorzus Syn produced, across 12 volumes spanning decades, has a quality of forward motion, ideas connecting to other ideas, observations generating questions, questions generating methodology. Even her most personal passages have this quality, this sense of a mind that cannot encounter a thing without immediately asking what it means and what comes next. The entry from the night of Ajunapal's elevation has none of it. It is 9 sentences, each one complete and separate, like stones laid in a row with deliberate space between them. No sentence reaches toward the next, no idea opens into another. It reads like a document produced by someone who has decided, very carefully, exactly how much of the truth to record, and is holding everything else back through pure discipline. The 9th sentence reads, "A hammer placed in a room that needs a key will eventually break the room. The key must be built before the room is gone." She wrote this, closed the record, and began planning. What the other exiles did in the weeks following Paul's elevation, consolidated, argued about territory, tested the boundaries of what the native Sith king priests would permit before resistance became organized. 2 of them established what amounted to a personal guard from among the native warriors, force-sensitive Sith tribesmen who recognized power and moved toward it the way iron moved toward a lodestone. Not out of loyalty exactly, but out of the deep biological recognition that proximity to strength was safer than distance from it. What she did, learned a greeting, Kothvel, my blood sees yours. The native Sith exchanged this between equals. To withhold it was dominance. To offer it first was an acknowledgement of parity. And in a culture built entirely on hierarchy expressed through force sensitivity, offering parity to a being whose power you could feel from 30 feet away was an act of either profound respect or profound strategy. She offered it first, every time. To every king priest, every elder, every tribal representative who entered a room where she was present. None of the other exiles bothered. She had learned the greeting on her 3rd day on this world, from a clay tablet left in the abandoned shelter, a diplomatic protocol document, dry and administrative, listing the correct forms of address for interactions between Sith of different caste rankings. She had found it under a loose stone in the floor, which suggested it had been deliberately hidden there by whoever abandoned the shelter, which suggested the abandonment had not been peaceful. She filed this information and kept the tablet. The first formal meeting with the Sith King-Priest Council happened 22 days after landing. Ajunapal attended. 3 of the other exiles attended. The meeting was called by the King-Priests, which meant it was, by Sith cultural protocol, a meeting of submission, the weaker party requesting audience with the stronger. Paul understood this. He arrived in the posture of someone who understood it completely and wanted everyone in the room to know that he understood it. The king-priests arrived in ceremonial attire, layered dark fabric, bone and metal ornamentation representing lineage and ritual rank, the formal head coverings that indicated a priest operating in official capacity rather than personal one. They were 7 in number. The eldest, a figure she would later designate in her records as Elder Seat 1, until she learned his actual name and then continued using the designation anyway out of habit, was somewhere between 60 and 80 standard years, which among the native Sith placed him at an age of considerable social weight. Paul spoke first. Through a translation, one of the other exiles had a partial working knowledge of the Sith language. Partial. The gaps in the translation were significant enough that she tracked them in a separate column of notes while the meeting proceeded, cataloging what was being lost between languages and what the losses might cost them later. The king-priests listened. Their faces gave nothing away that she could read yet. The micro-expressions she had learned to track among humans were different here, calibrated to a different musculature, a different cultural vocabulary of display and concealment. She was working from incomplete information and knew it, what she could read. The eldest king-priest's hands. He kept them very still throughout Paul's translated speech. Not the stillness of calm, the stillness of someone managing a strong response. When the translation reached the section where Paul outlined the terms of what he was calling a partnership, the eldest king-priest's left hand moved once. A small lateral motion, barely perceptible, immediately controlled. She wrote it down. When the formal portion concluded and the king-priests conferred briefly among themselves before responding, she did something none of the other exiles did. She waited until Elder Seat 1's eyes crossed hers. A moment of incidental contact, not sought, just the natural sweep of an old man's attention across a room, and said, in his own language, without an intermediary, Kothvel. The room changed, not dramatically, not in any way Paul or the others would have noticed or logged. But the quality of the elder's stillness shifted, from managed resistance to something more complex, something that required a different kind of stillness to contain. He looked at her for 3 full seconds. Then he returned his attention to Paul and continued the meeting as if nothing had occurred. But at the meeting's conclusion, as the king-priests filed out, Elder Seat 1 paused at the doorway for a fraction of a second longer than the others. His eyes did not move toward her again. He did not need to look. He knew she had noticed the pause. She had. Paul did not ask about it afterward. He did not ask because he had not seen it. And he had not seen it because his attention during the meeting had been entirely forward-facing, the posture of a man accustomed to the important things, happening directly in front of him. This was not a criticism. It was an accurate description of how power of his particular kind functioned. Paul's force ability was immense and blunt and genuine, and it worked by presence, by pressure, by the simple overwhelming fact of what he was in a room. He did not need to notice the edges of things. The edges came to him eventually. She worked the edges, not because she lacked the force ability to work any other way, because the edges were where the actual infrastructure of a thing was built. The center got the attention. The edges got the foundations. Over the following months, while Paul consolidated military dominance and the other exiles established their individual territories and rivalries, she built something quieter and considerably more durable. She met with the king priests individually, not as an exile representative, but as a scholar, as someone interested in their traditions, their force practices, their understanding of what they called the blood of the sky. She brought nothing to these meetings except attention and a growing command of their language, which improved faster than anyone expected, because she was spending 4 hours every night working through the linguistic structure with the same systematic approach she had applied to dark side philosophy in the Coruscant archives. Same mind, different territory. In exchange for her attention, the king priests gave her access to things they had not given the others: the ritual texts, the bloodline records, the oral histories that existed nowhere in written form, because writing them down was considered a form of diminishment, as if a thing written could be owned by whoever held the document, while a thing spoken belonged to the heir, and therefore to everyone. She wrote them down anyway, with the king priest's knowledge, in her own script which none of them could read. This arrangement satisfied everyone. The ceremony that formalized Paul's authority over the native Sith king priests took place on the 44th day of the first year, in the valley below the largest of the abandoned temple structures. It was an elaborate ceremony, complex staging, specific positions and movements for each participant, a particular sequence of ritual phrases spoken in the ancient Sith dialect that predated even the king priest's own living memory. She had designed it, not under her name. She had presented it to Paul as a translation of existing Sith submission protocols, which was partially accurate. The framework came from the king priest's own ritual vocabulary, but the specific choreography, the sequence, the positioning of the exiles relative to the native participants, the particular ancient phrases she had selected from the oral histories she had been, recording, these were her choices. Architecture, not translation. Paul had reviewed it, approved it, implemented it without asking a single question about the specific choices made. This also told her something important. From 30 feet back at the edge of the gathered crowd of native Sith observers, she watched the ceremony unfold. Paul stood at the center of the valley floor, exactly where she had specified, a position that, according to the oral histories, was called the standing point, the place where the first Sith king had received his divine mandate from the Force itself in a legend predating recorded history. The king priests arrayed themselves in the pattern she had drawn for them, moving through the ritual phrases in the correct sequence, their voices carrying across the valley in the deep tonal language that made everything sound ancient regardless of what was actually being said. The Force moved through it. That was the unexpected part, the part she had designed theoretically, but not entirely predicted in practice. The ritual structure she had built was not arbitrary. It drew on something real in the Sith tradition, something that had accumulated weight over millennia of practice. And when 8 Force-sensitive exiles stood inside that structure alongside the king priests, the darkness in the valley floor responded, not dramatically, not with visible phenomenon, just a deepening, a quality of attention in the air, as if the planet itself was registering that something was being formalized. Paul felt it. His posture shifted almost imperceptibly, a fraction of straightening, a barely visible expansion of presence. He thought it was his own power. She noted this in the record, pressing the stylus into the page without looking down, her eyes on the ceremony. the words appearing below her gaze through pure muscle memory. "Oh," she wrote, "he believes the Force is responding to him. It is responding to the architecture. These are not the same thing. Oh, he will never know the difference, and this will matter later." The ceremony concluded. Oh, the eldest king priest, Elder Seat One, who was now formally subordinate to a being he had never chosen and could not have refused, descended to one knee in the dust of the valley floor. Oh, Ajunapal, first Dark Lord of the Sith, accepted this submission with the exact expression she had told him to use: neutral authority, inevitable rather than triumphant. He had practiced it. Oh, done it well. Oh, from 30 feet back, recording every detail into the pages without looking at them, watching the architecture she had built function exactly as designed around a man she had already decided was the wrong choice to stand at its center. She felt something close in her chest. Not grief exactly, not anger. Oh, the specific, hollow sensation of understanding something completely and being unable to share the understanding with anyone who would recognize its weight. She closed the record. Oh, pressed the stylus flat against the cover. 30 feet away, Paul rose. Oh, the crowd of native Sith observers made a sound, low, collective, the involuntary vocalization of a people absorbing a change they had not chosen and could not reverse. Oh, she was already thinking about the next thing. Oh, already 3 steps into the question she would not write down for another 3 years, the question that would eventually produce the most consequential document in Sith history. How do you build, something that doesn't need you to stay alive for it to work? The dust of the valley settled around her feet, red and fine and patient. Oh, the answer, she understood, was already somewhere in the pages she had been filling since the first dark night in the abandoned shelter. Finding it was only a matter of time. Oh, and time, unlike recognition, unlike understanding, unlike the particular grief of watching a hammer stand in a room that needed a key, time was something this world had in abundance. The first draft began with an apology, not to the native Sith, to the argument itself, a half-page of what she later described in a marginal note as unnecessary throat-clearing, in which she acknowledged the ethical complexity of what she was proposing before, proposing it as if the acknowledgement would function as permission, as if naming a thing's weight made the weight acceptable. She crossed it out before the ink dried. The second draft began with data. Year 3 of the exile reckoning. The planet had settled into them by now, or they had settled into it, which was not the same thing but produced similar results. The abandoned shelters had become permanent structures, expanded and reinforced with stone quarried from the valley walls. The native Sith king priests had moved from watchful resistance to watchful cooperation, which was the best available outcome, and everyone knew it. Paul's military consolidation had reached the point where open resistance from the remaining tribal holdouts was no longer a question of whether but of when, and when was looking increasingly like, never. From the outside, it resembled the early architecture of something stable. From her vantage point, which was considerably closer to the actual foundations than anyone else occupied, it resembled something built on ground that had not been properly tested. The problem was biological. Specifically, there were 8 of them, 8 exiles. 8 force-sensitive humans dropped into a world populated by thousands of native Sith with their own force traditions, their own power structures, their own deep and ancient relationship with darkness in this ground. 8 was not enough to sustain anything. 8 was a generation at best. One bad decade, one illness moving through a confined population, one conflict that took the wrong people, and the entire project collapsed back into the red dust. She had been running this calculation since the third week of the crossing. The numbers did not improve with time. The solution was also biological. She had known this for 2 years before writing it down. The first draft, the one with the crossed-out apology, ran to 20 pages and contained a section in its second half titled Considerations of Individual Circumstance. This section addressed, in careful and specific language, the question of consent, the right of the native Sith to participate in or decline the proposed integration program. The cultural and personal implications for individuals whose bloodlines would be designated for union with the exile population. The section was thorough. It was genuinely engaged with the complexity it described. It occupied 6 pages of the 20. In the second draft, it occupied 3. In the third draft, the one she presented to the other exiles on the 14th of Korath, Year 3, in the main hall of the stone structure that had become their closest approximation of a seat of governance, it did not exist. Between Draft 1 and Draft 3, the section on individual circumstance had been reduced to a single clause embedded in a larger sentence about implementation protocols, and then removed entirely in the final revision. And she had not noted its removal anywhere in the tomes, not as a decision, not as a choice. Simply, it was there, and then it was not, and the argument read more cleanly without it. This is the most precise record of how it happened. Not a dramatic moment of choosing darkness over light. Not a line crossed with awareness of the crossing. Just a section that shrank. Draft by draft, revision by revision, the people inside the argument became smaller and then disappeared entirely, and the argument became cleaner. And she submitted the clean version because clean arguments were more likely to be accepted, and acceptance was the point. She called it bloodline integration. The term appears first in the second draft's title and persists through the third. Before that, in her private notes from the preceding 2 years, she had used a different phrase, continuity architecture, which was more accurate to what she was actually describing, but also she must have recognized too transparent about the scale of what was being designed. Bloodline integration suggested a process, something that happened between individuals, case by case, a weaving rather than an engineering. Continuity architecture suggested what it actually was, a system, a designed structure intended to produce specific outcomes across generations, in which the individuals involved were components rather than participants. She changed the term between the private notes and the first draft. The tomes record this transition without commenting on it. The presentation to the other exiles lasted 2 hours. 6 of the 7 listened with varying degrees of engagement, 2 immediately practical, running their own mental calculations about what the expanded force-sensitive population would mean for military capacity, 2 skeptical in ways she had anticipated and addressed in the third draft's appendix, 1 largely silent in a way that she recorded as unreadable and found mildly concerning, 1 visibly uncomfortable, though the discomfort seemed directed more at the clinical language than at the proposal's substance. Paul said nothing for the first 90 minutes. This was not unusual. His default mode in group settings was to absorb information until he had sufficient certainty to speak with authority, which meant his silences were working silences rather than empty ones. She had learned to read the quality of his attention by the angle of his head and the particular stillness of his hands. The same lateral hand motion reading she had developed watching the king priests applied now to the man she had voted to lead them. His hands were completely still for the first 90 minutes. At the 91st minute, he asked one question, not about ethics, Not about the native Sith's role in the process. Not about the section that was no longer in the document. Oh, he asked, how many generations until the hybrid population can sustain independent Force traditions? She had the answer ready. Oh, she had calculated it 3 different ways, using 3 different variables for Force sensitivity inheritance rates, based on what the bloodline records showed. She gave him the median estimate. Oh, he nodded once. That was Paul's approval, a single nod, the most economical form of agreement available. She recorded it in the margin of her presentation copy. 1 nod, sufficient. There was a woman. Oh, she appears in the tomes in Volume 1, in the survey records from the Force sensitivity assessments conducted during the first year. Assessments that she had designed and largely conducted herself. Oh, moving through the native Sith settlements with a translated introduction and a systematic protocol for identifying the depth and character of individual Force sensitivity. Oh, the woman is designated S7 in the survey records, which means she was the 7th subject assessed in the settlement designated S during the first survey circuit. Oh, the physical description in S7's record is the longest of any subject in the survey. 4 sentences where most subjects received 1 or 2. Oh, the bone structure of her face noted with a specificity that the assessment protocol did not require. Oh, the quality of her stillness described in terms borrowed from the Force landscape observations rather than the standard physiological vocabulary. Oh, the particular way the darkness in the valley seemed to organize at itself slightly differently in the space around her. Not dramatically, not visibly to anyone without sustained attention, but, oh, measurably to someone who had spent years learning to track such variations. The Force sensitivity rating assigned to S7 is the highest in the entire first survey. Oh, marked with a small double-line notation that she used throughout the tomes to indicate a subject worthy of sustained attention. Oh, below the rating, in smaller letters than the surrounding text, particular aptitude for the meditative combat traditions. Oh, responds to the pull of the Valley Nexus with what appears to be genuine recognition rather than instinctive recoil. Notable. Notable. Oh, that was the last word written about S7 in any volume of the tomes. The survey record has no follow-up entry, no second assessment. Oh, no notation about which settlement she had been designated to in the Bloodline integration program. The designations that appear for every other high-rated subject in the survey, carefully matched to specific exile partners based on Force sensitivity complementarity and projected offspring potential. S7 has no designation, no follow-up. Oh, no record of what happened to her after the 14th of Velsorn, Year 1, when the survey of Settlement S was completed and the assessor moved on to the next settlement. Oh, one possible explanation: the record was lost, a volume damaged, a page removed, a notation that existed and no longer does. Oh, another possible explanation: there is no follow-up record because she never created one. Oh, because S7 was assessed, noted, marked as notable, and then placed in a different category from the others. A category with no designation and no program and no future in the architecture she was building. The tomes do not explain this. Oh, the absence sits in the middle of the survey record like the crossed-out section of Draft 1. Something that was there and then was not, and whose removal says more than its presence would have. Oh, the doctrine was formally accepted on the 14th of Korath, Year 3. Oh, all 7 of the other exiles marked their approval on a new clay tablet. Better materials now, a harder clay that took impressions cleanly and dried without cracking. Oh, she had sourced it from a deposit 3 miles up the valley. Another edge detail that nobody had noticed needed attending to until it was already attended. She marked her own approval last. Oh. The mark was identical to the one she had pressed into the soft clay at Paul's election. Clean, precise, made with the same pressure she applied to every physical act that required accuracy. Oh. Afterward, she opened the record to a fresh page, pressed the date into the stone in the clean notation she used for formal entries. 14th of Korath, year 3 of the exile reckoning. Nothing after it. Oh. Every other dated entry in the tomes, across 12 volumes, across decades of record, carries at least one observation beyond the date. Oh. A note on conditions, a contextual detail, an immediate reaction. Even the 9-sentence entry from Paul's election night had the 9 sentences. This entry had the date. Just the date. Oh. A complete line in a record built entirely on completion. And it was the most incomplete thing in the whole collection. Oh. The date sitting alone on the page the way a word sits alone when everything around it has been deliberately removed. Not empty by accident. Empty by decision. Oh. What she did not write. Whether S7's face crossed her mind when the clay tablet made the rounds. Oh. What she did not write. Whether the clean argument felt clean, or whether clean was simply what it looked like from the outside. What she did not write. Anything at all. Just the date. Oh. The 14th of Korath, year 3. Outside the stone hall, the red valley held its color against the darkening sky. Oh. Somewhere in the settlement clusters beyond the valley walls, the native Sith were going about the ordinary texture of their days. The ones who did not yet know that a document had just been, completed that concerned them entirely, and consulted them not at all. The clay tablet dried. The marks hardened into it permanently. 8 impressions pressed into material that would outlast every person who had made them. She closed the record, set the stylus beside it, stood, walked to the doorway of the stone hall, and stood there for a moment, not looking at the valley, not looking at anything in particular, just occupying the threshold between the inside and the outside, with the particular stillness of someone who has finished one thing and has not yet decided to begin the next. Then she stepped through. The war, when it came, would begin in this same valley. Not yet. Not for another several months. Not until the last resisting tribal federation made the calculation that cooperation was worse than resistance and acted on it. But the ground was already prepared. The architecture already laid. Everything that followed had already been decided in the documents. It always had been. The war journals are the hardest part of the tomes to read. Not because of what they contain, because of what they don't. Pick up any volume from the pre-war period, and the pages breathe. Observations layered on observations, sensory details folded into theoretical frameworks, the occasional margin note that has nothing to do with anything except that something caught her attention, and she recorded it anyway. The smell of Vthcas in clay pots. The particular angle of light through a cracked temple wall at the opening hour. The way Elder Seat One's hands moved when he was managing something he hadn't decided how to feel about yet. Then pick up the war volumes. The entries are shorter, drier. The margin notes disappear almost entirely. The sensory details. The ones that had been arriving naturally, unbidden, the involuntary registrations of a mind that couldn't help noticing everything. Those go quiet, not all at once, gradually. The way a voice gets quieter in a room where something loud is happening nearby, until eventually the loud thing is the only sound, and you stop noticing the silence where the other voice used to be. This is what a decade of empire building in blood costs a person who began as a scholar. Not the horror, not the guilt, the noticing. Year 4 of the exile reckoning. The Veradun Tribal Federation, the largest of the remaining resistant Sith confederacies, controlling territory across the northeastern reaches of Coraban's primary continent, made its decision. The calculation they had arrived at was not irrational. Cooperation with the exiles meant survival under permanent subordination. Resistance meant the possibility, however diminishing, of something else. The Federation's war priests had apparently spent 3 months debating this, and the faction that chose resistance had won by a margin that the records described as narrow. Narrow margins in councils like that one meant the losing faction was right. The war that followed lasted 11 years. Not continuous combat. The Veradun were not organized for sustained conventional warfare, and neither, in truth, were the exiles. What it actually resembled was a prolonged series of confrontations with long intervals of managed tension between them, punctuated by specific engagements that were each decisive in small ways and, collectively decisive in large ones. Territory, bloodlines, the gradual grinding reduction of a people who had chosen the wrong side of an equation they hadn't written. She did not fight in any of it. What she did instead designed the protocols. The force-assisted assessment system she had developed during the first-year surveys had been a relatively blunt instrument, useful for identifying high force sensitivity in cooperative subjects under stable conditions. War conditions required something different, faster, applicable to subjects who were not cooperative and conditions that were not stable. The interrogation protocols she developed over the first 6 months of the Veradun conflict occupied 40 pages of Volume 3. Every page written in the same careful syntax as the Bloodline integration doctrine. Clean sentences, precise terminology, the architectural quality that made her work immediately usable by practitioners other than herself. The protocols covered 3 categories of assessment: identifying force-sensitive bloodlines worth preserving from captured Veradun populations, determining the reliability of information extracted under force-assisted interrogation, and distinguishing between genuine cooperation and strategic compliance in tribal representatives brought in for negotiation. The third category was the most technically complex. She solved the core problem: how to detect strategic compliance without alerting the subject that detection was occurring. Through a method involving sustained passive force reading during, apparently ordinary conversation, a technique she had been developing privately for 2 years and now formalized into transferable procedure. She was, by any measure, good at this. The protocols were in use within a month of completion. The other exiles implemented them with minimal modification, which was the highest form of professional acknowledgement available in their particular ecosystem. She recorded this fact in Volume 3 without a single additional observation. 1 sentence. The protocols were adopted. Next entry. The tribal elder arrived on the 7th of Velnarash, year 5. Not a Veradun elder. A representative from the Kissrath Confederation, which had maintained a position of technical neutrality since the conflict began, trading cooperation with the exiles in exchange for non-interference in their internal governance. The neutrality had held for a year, which was longer than she had projected in her initial assessment. His name in her records is given in full: Vthcas, one of the very few native Sith individuals in the entire tomes to receive their actual name rather than a survey designation. She does not explain this choice. The name simply appears, and its presence among the designations is notable in the way an unexpected word in the middle of a familiar sentence is notable. You feel it before you understand why. Vthcas arrived at the stone complex with 3 attendants, formal diplomatic markings, and a request for a direct meeting. Not with Paul, not with the Exile Council, with her. Oh, specifically her. Oh. He had used her name, the exile name, not a designation, in the formal request, which meant he had done research, which meant he understood more about the internal architecture of the exile. Oh. Hierarchy than the exiles had disclosed publicly. She noted this immediately in the margin of the entry, with the double-line notation she used for subjects worthy of sustained attention. Oh. She redirected him to Paul. The protocol was clear. Formal diplomatic contacts went through the Dark Lord. She had helped write this protocol. Oh. It existed because concentrated authority produced more consistent outcomes than distributed negotiation, and consistent outcomes were what the early empire required. Oh. These were the reasons she had given when the protocol was being constructed. They remained the reasons she applied when Vthcas' attendants transmitted his request. She redirected him. Oh. Noted the redirection in the formal record. Moved to the next item on her working list for that day. Oh. 3 weeks later, in a different entry entirely, a technical notation about Bloodline survey methodology that had nothing to do with Kissrath. She wrote, "The Kissrath elder would have said something worth recording." No elaboration, no explanation of why this thought surfaced in the middle of an unrelated entry. Oh. Just the sentence, and then the methodology notes continuing as if it hadn't appeared. She returned to Vthcas twice more in the tomes, both times in the margins of unrelated work. Oh. Both times in the same smaller handwriting she used for things she hadn't decided to say officially. Oh. The last marginal note, appearing in Volume 5 nearly 8 years after the original encounter, reads, "Never learned what he came to say. This is the closest the tomes come to regret about a specific decision." She never used the word regret. The exile called Carnus Muur died in the 9th month of year 6. The battle is not named in her account. Oh. The location is given only as the Eastern Reaches. The tactical circumstances are not described at all, which means she either didn't know them or didn't record them. And given her thoroughness in every other domain, the second seems more likely than the first. What she recorded, that he was gone. Oh. That the vacancy in the force where a specific presence had been was a physical sensation she had not anticipated. Oh. That she had not been close to him, had in fact found his methodology sloppy and his documentation habits genuinely frustrating, and that neither of these things appeared to be relevant to what she felt when the absence arrived. This is the only meditation on mortality in the entire tomes. It runs to half a page. Oh. Every sentence careful in a way that suggests she was writing it slowly, rereading each line before committing to the next. Oh. The final sentence reads, "The Force does not observe a difference between the people we valued and the people we did not. It simply registers the subtraction." Oh. Perhaps this is the one way it is more honest than we are. Below this, a 2-day gap before the next entry. 2 days of no record is unusual. Oh. Not unprecedented. Illness had produced gaps, and the first weeks on this world had produced gaps. But in the sustained daily rhythm of the war years, 2 days meant something happened that she couldn't immediately metabolize into documentation. What she did during those 2 days is not recorded. What she returned to on the 3rd day was the laboratory. Oh. The alchemical work had been running in parallel to everything else since year 2. Oh. She had begun with the theoretical framework, the dark side as an active force in biological systems, the question of whether sustained application of force energy to living tissue could produce directed change rather than simply destruction. Most force applications to living matter produced trauma. What she was interested in was the other possibility, the precision version. the dark side as a scalpel rather than a hammer. The early experiments had been frustrating in the specific way that early experiments in genuinely new territory were always frustrating. The variables too numerous, the controls insufficient, the results too inconsistent to constitute evidence of anything, except that the question was harder than initial framing suggested. Year 3. First consistent results in plant biology. The dark side could accelerate, redirect, and in limited cases reverse biological processes in non-sentient organisms, documented across 47 trials. Year 4. First trials with the small fauna of Coraban's underground cave systems, inconsistent. The nervous system introduced variables the plant trials hadn't contained. Year 5. The protocol's adjustment, a refinement in her force application technique that produced dramatically improved consistency. She noted this refinement in 2 sentences and immediately moved to the next trial series. Year 6, month 10, 3 weeks after Carnus Muir's death, 1 week after she returned from the 2-day gap in the record. The bone structure changed. The subject was a cave creature, one of the blind, heavily built organisms that move through Coraban's underground water systems, force-sensitive in the diffuse, non-directed way that most life on this world was force-sensitive, as if the darkness in the ground had simply distributed itself evenly through everything that lived above it. The application took 6 hours, sustained, precise. The most controlled force work she had yet attempted in the Alchemical series. By the 3rd week of the trial, the skeletal structure had begun to respond. The entry describing this discovery is the longest single entry in the War Years volumes, longer than the Mortality Meditation, longer than the Bloodline integration framework, longer than anything she produced in the decade of fighting by a significant margin. It is also written differently. The syntax is the same, controlled, precise, the architectural quality intact. But something in the temperature of the language changes. The clinical distance that had been settling over the war journals, like a gradual atmospheric change, lifts slightly, in the way temperature lifts slightly in a room when a fire is newly lit. Not warmth exactly. Something adjacent to warmth, the particular quality of a mind that has found the thing it was actually looking for and cannot entirely contain its recognition. She describes the skeletal changes across 4 pages, the specific measurements, the rate of change per week, the force signature of the modified tissue compared to the baseline, the implications for directed application to higher-order organisms. The implications section runs to 2 pages. What the darkness could do to a living body, applied with sufficient precision and sustained intent, was considerably more extensive than she had initially projected. The tissue modification was not surface level. The changes propagated through the organism's entire biological architecture. The force sensitivity of the modified creature increased measurably, not in the diffuse, ambient way of its pre-trial state, but directionally. As if the dark side, given a shaped channel to move through, organized itself along that channel and reinforced it. She had not predicted this. The entry records her surprise. Not the word itself, but the evidence of it in the sentence structure. The slight loss of control in the phrasing that she immediately corrected in the following paragraph, but could not uncorrect in the paragraph where it appeared. Something had broken through the war years' distance. Something had reached the part of her that had spent 11 years in a Coruscant archive, reading everything the Order called too dangerous to study, that had believed with the particular faith of the genuinely curious that understanding was always worth the pursuit, that had been getting quieter and quieter under the weight of protocols and doctrines, and redirected diplomats and absence entries, and clay tablets with nothing after the date. That part surfaced briefly in the alchemical entry from year 6, month 10. It surfaced and wrote 4 pages, and then receded back under the surface. And the entry that followed it, dated the next morning, was dry and brief and technical again. But it had been there. The final entry of Chapter 5's period ends without ceremony. No meditation, no reflection, no margin notes in smaller handwriting about things she hadn't decided to say officially. Just 3 sentences, written in the steady hand of the war years, the hand that had learned to record without feeling the recording. The bone structure changed by the 3rd week. The eyes at the end of the month. What the subject felt is not recorded here. What the subject felt. She knew what it felt. The trial series had included observational data on behavioral response throughout the modification process. The record of what it felt was entirely available to her. She chose not to record it. This choice, this specific, deliberate, documented absence, sits at the end of the war years the way the missing section on individual circumstance sat in the Bloodline integration draft. Something that existed and was removed, something whose removal was itself a kind of data. What the subject felt is not recorded here. Outside, the valley held its color. The war in the eastern reaches was entering its final phase. The Veradun were running out of what they needed to keep running. Inside the laboratory, the modified creature moved in its stone enclosure, its changed eyes catching the dim light differently than eyes should. She watched it for a while. Then she picked up the record and walked to the doorway, stood there, the threshold between the inside and the outside. Somewhere in the complex behind her was a room she had not entered in a long time, a room she had no particular reason to avoid. She had simply not gone back. She stood in the doorway a moment longer, then turned away from the room she wasn't entering, and went back to work. There is a place in Volume 4 where the pages change texture, not dramatically. A reader moving through the tomes without specific attention would miss it entirely, would turn from one page to the next and register nothing except the continuation of careful, precise documentation in a script only one person in history ever used. But a reader paying close attention, the kind of attention she herself had trained into every scholar who spent time in her proximity, would feel it before identifying it. A slight difference in how the page sits. A barely perceptible heaviness in the paper itself, as if something had been pressed into it with more force than writing required. The crossed-out entry occupies 3 full pages of Volume 4. 3 pages of text rendered completely, methodically illegible, not by a single panicked stroke, not by the hasty obliteration of someone acting in distress, but by repeated, deliberate passes of the stylus across every line, every word, applied with the sustained precision of someone who does careful work, and was doing careful work here too. Each stroke placed with intent. Each pass slightly overlapping the last to ensure nothing survived underneath. Whatever she wrote on those 3 pages, she spent longer destroying it than most entries took to produce. This tells you something. The question is what? The weeks before the crossing out were, by the external record, unremarkable. Year 9 of the exile reckoning. The Veradun conflict had concluded 2 years prior, its ending not dramatic but gradual. The Federation's resistance dissolving the way resistance eventually dissolved when the mathematics became, undeniable. The surviving Veradun had been absorbed into the Bloodline integration program, their force-sensitive lineages designated and matched with the careful methodology of the survey protocols. The Empire, such as it was, had achieved its first period of genuine stability. She had used this stability productively. Volume 4, in the months preceding the crossed-out entry, shows a researcher at peak output, the alchemical work expanding rapidly from the cave creature trials into higher-order organisms, the theoretical framework developing faster than the experimental series could keep pace with. A series of secondary projects running in parallel that demonstrated the particular quality of a mind that generates more questions than any single line of inquiry can contain. The margin notes had returned, not to the density of the pre-war volumes, but present, small observations, tangential thoughts, the involuntary registrations of a noticing mind that the war years had suppressed and that had been, gradually, unevenly, reasserting themselves. A note about the color of the sky at the opening hour, the first such observation in 4 years. A brief notation about the way the force moved through the valley differently on days when the wind came from the eastern passes. A single line, written sideways in the margin of a page about bone density modification. The Vthcas tastes different when brewed in the new clay. Better, possibly. Noting this, these small returns, evidence of the part of her that had gone quiet during the wars and was slowly, tentatively, finding its way back to the surface. Then the crossed-out entry, and after it, that part of her does not return again. Paul visited the laboratory on the 3rd of Osith, year 9. The visit is recorded in 2 places. The formal daily log she maintained as a matter of administrative practice, and a separate brief notation in the working journal for the Alchemical series. The daily log records the visit with the same dry efficiency it applied to everything. Time of arrival, duration, subject discussed, 11 minutes. A question about projected timelines for the Force Amulet research. The working journal notation is different. It reads, Paul came today. Ask the question I have been waiting 2 years for someone to ask incorrectly. Nothing after this. No record of what the question was. No record of her response. The notation simply ends, mid-thought, as if she began to write the rest and then decided against it, or as if the rest was so obvious to her that writing it felt redundant. The question she had been waiting 2 years for someone to ask incorrectly. This phrase has occupied scholars of the tomes for generations. What question? Incorrect in what specific way? Wrong framing, wrong assumption, wrong person asking it. The notation offers no resolution. What it offers instead is the date, the 3rd of Osith. The crossed-out entry is dated the 7th. 4 days. Between the 3rd and the 7th, the working journal shows 3 entries, all technical, all brief. The quality of the handwriting in these 3 entries is the most controlled in Volume 4. More controlled than the surrounding pages, as if the hand producing them was being managed very carefully. The way a person manages their voice when something is threatening their composure and maintaining the appearance of composure has become the primary task. The 7th of Osith entry begins normally. The date is marked. The first line, all that is legible, the last sentence that survived the crossing out, begins mid-thought, as if she had already been working through the idea in her head before committing it to the page, and the written version was joining a conversation already in progress. What he does not understand, and what I have. Then 3 pages of obliteration. The stylus marks are heaviest at the beginning of the crossing out and lighten slightly toward the end, not because the pressure decreased, but because the instrument itself wore down slightly over the sustained work of erasure. She kept going past the point where the stylus was performing well. She kept going until the job was finished. The page after the crossing out is blank. Not a writing surface she skipped. Blank in the way a page is blank, when the person holding the journal sat with it open to that page for some time without writing anything. Oh, the paper has a quality of having been present, attended to, and left empty. Then the record resumes. The entry from the 8th of Osith is the first evidence that something fundamental has shifted. Oh, on its surface, it is an entirely normal technical entry. Observations from the overnight monitoring of the 3rd-generation amulet trial ball. Measurements, projections, a methodological note about adjusting the force application interval, indistinguishable in content from dozens of similar entries across the alchemical work. But the sentence construction is different. In every prior volume of this book, her writing voice operates from a stable first-person center. Direct, present, I observed, I recorded, I adjusted the methodology. The perspective of someone who occupies their own position fully, who does not require distance from themselves to function. The entry from the 8th of Osith contains this sentence. The researcher noted a decrease in the amulet's force absorption rate, consistent with the predicted saturation threshold. The researcher, not I, not even the passive construction she occasionally used for formal documentation. A third-person designation. The researcher applied to herself in the middle of a working journal entry that no one else would ever read. It appears once in the 8th entry. Twice in the entry from the 9th, 4 times across the entries of the following week, decreasing after that, but never disappearing entirely. The third-person self-reference remains a feature of her writing from this point forward, surfacing periodically in moments of high technical focus or, notably, in any entry that touches on questions of individual circumstance. She never commented on this shift, never acknowledged it in the text. The distance simply arrived, and she wrote from inside it. There was a Sith woman named Vthcas. She is mentioned in Volume 3 and appears with greater frequency in Volume 4, a native Sith practitioner of considerable force ability, whose bloodline had been designated in the integration program 3 years prior, and who had subsequently spent significant time in proximity to the laboratory complex as part of the early alchemical apprenticeship that was beginning to form around the research. The records of their interactions are almost entirely technical. Observations about Vthcas's force sensitivity range, her aptitude for the sustained meditative states the alchemical work required, her progress in the secondary script that she was teaching the advanced apprentices so they could access the full methodology documentation. Almost entirely technical. In Volume 3, in a margin note dated 6 months before the crossed-out entry, she had written, "VK asked today why the documentation uses numbers for most subjects and names for so few. Did not answer immediately. The question is more precise than it appears." A second margin note, 4 months before the crossing out, VK has begun leaving Vthcas outside the laboratory entrance in the mornings. Has not acknowledged doing this. I have not acknowledged noticing. The Vthcas notation. Written in the same small letters as the other involuntary observations, the ones that didn't belong in documentation and arrived anyway because the mind producing them couldn't stop noticing. After the crossed-out entry, Vthcas appears in 2 more entries in Volume 4, both purely technical. Then her designation appears in an administrative record in Volume 5, a bloodline matching record. Her designation paired with one of the younger exiles, the union formally arranged. After this administrative notation, her name does not appear in the tomes again, not in the margins, not in the technical records. Not in the small letters reserved for things noticed, but not officially said. Gone from the record the way the section on individual circumstance had gone from the Bloodline doctrine draft. The way S7's follow-up entry had never arrived. The way things disappeared from these pages when she had decided, for whatever reason, that their presence was no longer something she could afford. 11 days passed between the crossed-out entry and the next one. 11 days of no record in a journal that had maintained near-daily entries across 9 years of exile, war, and empire building. 11 days of the volume sitting closed on the stone beside her sleeping mat. Not lost, not damaged, not inaccessible. Present, available, simply not opened. What she did during those 11 days is reconstructed only through secondary sources. The administrative logs maintained by the Exile Council's record keeper, which show her present at 2 formal governance meetings during the gap, contributing to proceedings in her standard capacity. A notation in the apprentice training records showing that the laboratory sessions continued uninterrupted. She worked, she attended meetings, she maintained every external function exactly as before. She simply did not write. For 11 days, the one practice she had maintained without interruption since before the exile, the one thing that had survived the crossing, the wars, the doctrine, the gradual cooling of the war. Went quiet. On the 12th day, she opened the volume, turned past the blank page, past the crossed-out entry's heavy, deliberate darkness, to the next clean surface. Pressed the date into the page, wrote 4 words, "The work continues," closed the record. The Sorzus Syn of Volume 5 is not a different person from the one in Volume 4. This is important to establish. She did not transform, did not break in any visible external way. The methodology remained precise. The output remained high. The architecture she was building continued to develop with the same sustained intelligence it had always demonstrated. But something in the register of the work had changed. The margin notes that had been returning, the sky observations, the Vthcas notation, the small involuntary records of a mind that couldn't stop noticing the texture of the world around it. Those, stopped, not gradually this time, immediately, completely, from the 8th of Osith onward. The third-person self-reference arrived and stayed. The sentence construction she had used regularly throughout all prior volumes, a particular kind of compound sentence that held 2 ideas in productive tension with each other, that allowed, complexity to exist without resolving it prematurely, disappeared from her writing after the crossing out. Not every such sentence, not overnight, but the frequency dropped sharply, and the ones that remained were more controlled, more resolved, less willing to sit inside uncertainty. She had been, before this period, a writer who allowed her sentences to not know things. After the 7th of Osith, the sentences knew. One final detail from Volume 4, discovered by a scholar 3,000 years after it was made. On the back of the blank page that follows the crossed-out entry, the side that faces the obliterated text, the surface that was pressed against the destruction while the journal sat closed for 11 days. There is a faint impression, not writing, an impression in the paper, from the pressure of what was written on the facing page before it was crossed out. Ghost text. The negative of words pressed hard enough to leave their shape in the page behind them. The impression is almost entirely illegible, too faint, too overlapping, too degraded by time to reconstruct, almost entirely. 3 words. In the middle of what appears to have been the entry's 2nd paragraph, pressed harder than the surrounding text, either for emphasis or because the hand producing them tightened involuntarily at a specific moment, are clear enough to read. Finally understood me. 3 words, no subject, no context. No way of knowing who or what had finally understood her, or whether the sentence was a statement of discovery or a statement of loss. Finally understood me, and then the crossing out. 3 pages of careful, sustained obliteration, applied to whatever had been understood, whoever had done the understanding, and everything she had written in response to it. After which 11 days of silence, after which the work continues, after which a woman who was the same woman, and also in ways that mattered in the long accumulation of years, not quite. The record does not say what happened. The record cannot say what happened. What it holds instead is the shape of what happened, in the shifted sentence constructions, in the vanished margin notes, in the third-person distance that arrived like a change in season and stayed. In 3 words impressed into the back of a blank page by the pressure of something written and then destroyed. In the Vthcas that stopped appearing outside the laboratory entrance. In the name that stopped appearing in the margins. In the clean, unadorned certainty of 4 words, written on a 12th morning after 11 days of nothing. The work continues, not a return. A resumption. There is a difference. The stone beside her sleeping mat held the impression of the volume where it had rested for 11 days. A slight indentation in the surface, barely perceptible. She noticed it. She did not record it. She picked up the volume, placed it under her arm, and walked to the laboratory. The decision she would make before dawn the following morning was already forming in the back of her mind. Quiet, inevitable, requiring her to believe something specific about herself, that the person who had written 3 pages and then destroyed them might have hesitated over. That person had finished hesitating. The work continued. There is a particular quality to the entries in Volume 6 that scholars of the tomes have described, across centuries of analysis, in remarkably consistent terms. Efficient, most say first. Then, cold. Then, if they are being precise rather than comfortable, the writing of someone who has stopped leaving room for themselves inside their own documentation. Every entry in this period serves a function. Every sentence earns its presence by carrying information forward. The involuntary registrations, the margin notes, the small sideways observations, the sentences that held 2 ideas in tension rather than resolving them. Those had been absent since Volume 4's 7th of Osith entry, and their absence by Volume 6 no longer felt like a recent loss. It felt like the natural condition of the record, as if the tomes had always been this way. As if the earlier volumes, with their Vthcas notations and sky color observations, and the questions that stayed questions, had belonged to a different document entirely. This is the most unsettling thing about Volume 6. Not what it contains, the way it has forgotten what came before it. The first decision. The amulet problem had occupied the theoretical framework since year 4. The core question was straightforward to articulate and had resisted solution for 8 years. How to fix dark side energy into a physical object with sufficient permanence that the object retained its force properties independent of any living practitioner's sustained attention. The difficulty was not in the initial imbuing. That process had been functional since year 5, producing amulets and talismans of modest and temporary effect. The difficulty was persistence. Without an active force user maintaining the connection, the energy dissipated. The object reverted to inert material within weeks, sometimes days, depending on the composition of the base material and the method of application. She had tried 17 different approaches to the persistence problem across 4 years of trials. Each had solved part of it. None had solved all of it. The entry from the 22nd of Kairos, year 12, is 6 lines long. The persistence problem is resolved. The solution requires a living subject as the anchoring medium during the imbuing process. The force connection established through the subject's own biological signature provides the permanence the purely material approaches could not. Trial amulet held full force saturation for 31 days post-completion without measurable decay. The methodology is documented in the technical appendix. This line of research is now complete. 6 lines. 31 days of sustained force saturation, a breakthrough that would reshape Sith alchemical practice for the next 7,000 years. That would eventually produce the artifacts carried by every major Sith Lord in the lineage she was building. And she gave it 6 lines and a reference to the appendix. The technical appendix is 43 pages. Precise, complete, immediately transferable to any practitioner with sufficient force sensitivity and access to the materials. A masterwork of documentation. It does not name the subject. It does not describe what the anchoring process required from the living body serving as medium. Not in physiological terms. Not in terms of duration or recovery. The methodology covers every technical variable with exhaustive precision and contains, in its 43 pages, exactly 0 information about what the experience involved for the organism at the center of it. The researcher had noted the decrease in force absorption rate. The researcher had not noted what the subject felt. This was no longer a choice. It was simply the standard operating procedure of a mind that had reorganized its categories. Some things were data, some things were not data. The line between the two categories had moved, gradually and then permanently, and the methodology reflected where the line now sat. She submitted the technical appendix to the communal record accessible to all exile practitioners. By year 13, 4 other practitioners were producing functional persistent amulets using her methodology. She recorded this adoption rate with the same brevity as the original discovery. The second decision. The Sith King priests held their religious authority through a system of bloodline documentation, stretching back further than any written record in their possession. Oral histories codified over centuries into a complex hierarchical map of which lineages carried what spiritual rank, which bloodlines were permitted to hold, which ritual positions, which unions were sanctioned by the old traditions and which were forbidden. This system was, from her perspective, an obstacle. Not because it resisted the bloodline integration program directly. By year 12, the program was sufficiently established that the king priest's formal resistance had largely dissolved into practical accommodation. The obstacle was subtler. The old bloodline hierarchy gave the king priests an independent framework for assessing status and legitimacy, a parallel system of authority that operated alongside the exile governance structure, rather than beneath it. Parallel systems were inefficiencies. Inefficiencies, over time, produced divergence. Divergence produced instability. She had documented this pattern in the administrative analysis she ran quarterly on the empire's governance structures, and the king-priest bloodline hierarchy appeared in the risk column of 3 consecutive quarterly assessments before she addressed it. The address took the form of a religious proposal. Specifically, a new doctrine presented to the King-Priest Council as a theological development rather than an administrative directive establishing that certain bloodlines, the ones the integration program had designated as highest priority, carried a sacred obligation to preserve their force lineage purity through exile-sanctioned unions. Marriages outside these sanctioned pairings were framed not as prohibited by governance, but as spiritually inauspicious. contrary to the will of what the king priests called the blood of the sky, though the framing was precise. She had spent 3 weeks developing it, working from the oral histories she had been recording since year 1, identifying the specific theological pressure points where a new doctrine would fit naturally into existing belief structures rather than displacing them. A directive issued from the exile governance structure would produce resistance. A religious development emerging from within the Sith's own tradition would produce compliance. The content was identical. The form determined the outcome. Her notation in the working journal the morning she presented it to the King Priest Council reads, "Framing adjusted to match the recipient's existing categories." A stylistic choice, a stylistic choice. The phrase appears without irony, without the third-person distance she had been using since Volume 4. In the clean, direct first person, as if the decision required no distance at all. The King Priest Council accepted the doctrine by the end of the same meeting. Elder Seat 1, who had survived into his 90s by now, whose hands she could still read at 30 feet, whose stillness she had been interpreting for 12 years, pressed his mark into the acceptance record with the expression of a man who understood exactly what was happening and had made his own calculation about the costs of refusal. She recorded his expression in the formal minutes as cooperative. In no other document did she record it differently. Between the second and third decisions, 14 months passed. The record from this interval is productive and unremarkable. The alchemical research expanding into new territory, opened by the amulet breakthrough, the Bloodline program running with the smooth efficiency of a system past its early complications. The governance structures stable in the way structures became stable when all the parallel systems had been resolved into a single hierarchy. Two things occur in this interval that are worth noting. The first, she completes what she privately calls the secondary script, the teaching version of her invented writing system, simplified enough for apprentices to learn in weeks rather than months. Complex enough that literacy in it required her direct instruction. By year 13, 11 practitioners can read the tomes. All 11 were trained by her. All 11 understood, without being told explicitly, that the knowledge they had been given came with an expectation of allegiance that was not a formal contract, and was therefore more binding than a one. The second, she stops visiting the valley alone. The evening walks, the ones that had produced the force landscape observations in the pre-war volumes, the ones where she had tracked how the pull of the nexus changed with weather and season, and the accumulated weight of the dead being laid into the ground. Those had continued intermittently even through the war years, a practice she maintained with the same irregular frequency as the margin. Notes, present and then absent and then present again. After the 22nd of Karaz, year 12, the day of the amulet breakthrough, she does not go to the valley alone again. The working journal does not note this. She does not record the last walk. There is simply a point after which the valley observations stop appearing, and before which they had been appearing, and no entry marking the transition. Something was resolved in the valley, apparently, by year 12. Whatever question it had been answering for her had received its answer. The third decision. The vault had stood in the northeastern section of the oldest temple complex for longer than the exiles had been on the world. It predated, by centuries, the priest-king who currently maintained it, an ancient repository of bloodline histories, ritual records, and oral tradition codifications accumulated across generations of the Sith kingdom before the exiles arrived. The priest king designated in the administrative records as Elder 3 had inherited responsibility for the vault from his predecessor, who had inherited it from his, in an unbroken chain of custodianship that represented the longest continuous institutional memory in the native Sith culture. The records it contained predated the integration program. They predated the exile governance structure. They predated, in some cases, any living Sith's personal memory, histories of bloodlines and spiritual lineages that existed nowhere else, preserved in a documentation system the king priests had developed independently over centuries. She had used these records extensively in the early years. The Bloodline Survey, the integration program's matching system, the religious doctrine framing. They had been among the most valuable research resources available to her in the first decade. On the 8th of Velnarash, year 14, she destroyed them. The administrative log records this with the same dry efficiency it applied to everything. Northeastern vault contents rendered non-recoverable. Authorized by the researcher. Process completed between the opening and high mark. No prior notation in any volume suggests this was planned. No quarterly governance assessment lists the vault as a risk factor. The parallel system problem had been resolved by the religious doctrine. No theoretical framework in the alchemical research required the vault's destruction. The journals do not explain it. There is only the administrative notation and the working journal entry from that evening, and what that entry contains. The entry from the 8th of Velnarash is the second shortest in Volume 6. It reads, Northeastern Vault completed, 2 words after the colon. The same spare notation she used for finished trials and resolved administrative matters and technical problems, whose solutions had been successfully implemented. Completed. Below this entry, taking up the remainder of the page, a list. The vault had been maintained by 3 keepers, practitioners whose role was the physical preservation and organization of the records, who had spent decades in daily contact with the material they protected. She had met all 3 during the early survey work. Their names appeared in her records from year 1 onward, in the survey designations she used for most native Sith subjects. The list on the evening of the 8th contains 3 entries, not their names, their survey designations, NK4, NK7, NK11. 3 combinations of letters and numbers, written in the clean hand of the Volume 6 period, taking up no more space than 3 items on any administrative checklist. Below them, nothing. No notation about their current status. No record of what happened to them between the opening and high mark when the vault contents were being rendered non-recoverable. No indication of whether their decades of custodial knowledge, the kind of institutional memory that lived in a person's hands and daily habits and could not be reconstructed from documents because it had never been in documents, had been addressed in any way. Just 3 designations. The page ends. NK4 had a name. It appears in a single entry from year 2, volume 1, one of the early survey records, the ones she had conducted personally before the protocols were formalized. He had been cooperative during the assessment, she noted. He had asked, at the end of the session, whether the records in the vault would be treated as part of the exiles' research resources or as the king priest's independent property. She had told him the question was premature. He had accepted this. NK7 appears in Volume 3 in a margin note, the kind of involuntary observation, written in small letters, that characterized the pre-crossing out volumes. The note reads, 7 recited a bloodline history from memory today that I have been unable to locate in any written source. 47 generations. No hesitation. asked him afterward how he retained it. He said the records didn't need to be in the vault because the vault was inside him. The vault was inside him. She had written this down. Oh. In small letters, sideways, in the margin of a page about something else entirely. NK11 does not appear in the tomes before the list on the 8th of Velnarash. Oh. Either they were assessed under a different designation in the early surveys, or the entry containing them was lost, or they arrived in the vault service after the survey period concluded. Oh, 3 designations on an evening page. Below them, nothing. Oh, after them. Volume 6 continues into the next morning's entry, which is a technical notation about the second-generation amulet series, written in the clean and efficient hand of a researcher whose work is proceeding as planned. Later that same night, the 8th of Velnarash in the final dark, which is the darkest point of the night, she added one more thing to the page. Not a notation. Oh, not a designation. Oh. Below NK11, in the smallest handwriting in all 12 volumes of the tomes, smaller even than the marginal observations of the pre-war period, smaller than the finally understood me impression on the back of the blank page in Volume 4, a single word, in the native Sith language she had been speaking for 14 years. Oh. The word translates approximately as enough. Whether it was directed at the 3 designations above it, or at herself, or at the record she was keeping, or at something else entirely that the entry does not name, this cannot be determined. It is the last word she writes in the native Sith language anywhere in the tomes. After this night, every entry is in her own invented script. The hybrid language she had built, because neither the Republic system nor the Sith cuneiform felt like something that belonged to her. After this night, she writes only in the language that no one else could read without her permission. Outside the complex, the valley held its darkness. The nexus in the deep rock, no longer the unformed, unorganized hunger she had first felt pressing against her palm on the 9th of Kanthurak, year 1, but something shaped now. Something that carried the weight of 14 years of deliberate cultivation, and the dead laid into the ground and the rituals performed above them, moved in its slow and patient way beneath everything. The record sat on the stone before her, open to the page with the 3 designations and the 1 Sith word, and the space below it that she had not filled. She closed it. Set the stylus beside it, still wet from the final entry. The decision was complete. All 3 of them were complete. The amulets would carry force beyond the practitioner's death. The bloodlines would run in channels she had designed. The records that predated her architecture had been removed from the world. What remained was hers. The tomes, the methodology, the lineages running in designated directions, through the next generation and the one after that. The 11 practitioners who could read her script and no one else's. The empire built on the foundation she had laid, while the man with the title stood at the center of ceremonies she had choreographed. Everything she had come here to build. The next morning, before the first breath, she would wake and make the 4th decision, the one that didn't feel like a decision, because by then the decisions had accumulated into a direction. And, moving in a direction did not require choosing. The record would open to a fresh page. A single word would appear on it, alone, in the center of the page, in the clean and certain hand of someone who had stopped leaving room for uncertainty. Power. The only time in 12 volumes that a single word occupied an entire paragraph. She would not explain it. She would not need to. Power. That single word had opened Volume 7's first page. No explanation followed it. No context. No theoretical framework connecting it to the entries before or after. Just the word, centered, alone. in the clean hand of someone who had finished asking questions about what they were doing and had moved fully into the doing of it. Volume 8, the volume that covers year 17 through year 23 of the Exile Reckoning, the period scholars have designated the first consolidation, opens differently. No single word, no declaration. Just a date, and below the date, inventory. 12 amulet sets completed and distributed to active practitioners. Bloodline integration program entering its third generational cycle. 17 apprentices currently holding literacy in the secondary script. The Northeastern Territories fully absorbed into the governance structure. The alchemical methodology now in use across 6 independent research operations, all derivative of her foundational work, none of them citing the source. Inventory. The record of someone counting what they have built. Reading it, you wait for the feeling underneath. It doesn't come. That is the chapter. That is all of it, really. The waiting for a feeling that the record has stopped producing. The hollowness dressed in the language of completion. Year 19 of the Exile Reckoning. The Empire is, by every measurable standard, working. The word empire requires some precision here. What exists by year 19 is not the vast organized dominion that later Sith historians would retroactively construct in their accounts of the founding period. The physical territory is substantial, but not unlimited. The governance structures are functional, but still young, still developing the institutional memory that makes governance self-sustaining rather than dependent on specific individuals to maintain. But the foundations hold. The Bloodline integration program had been producing children for 6 years. The first generation of hybrid offspring, born to exile fathers and Force-sensitive Sith mothers in the designated pairings of the integration program, or in some cases to exile mothers and Sith. Fathers in the less frequent reverse configuration were now between 4 and 9 standard years old enough to assess. Old enough to demonstrate what the program had actually produced versus what her theoretical projections had suggested. The projections had been conservative. The Force sensitivity in the hybrid children exceeded both parent populations by a margin that her assessment protocols had not been calibrated to measure accurately at the upper range. She had adjusted the protocols twice already and was developing a third adjustment. The children were not simply combining the Force sensitivity of 2 strong lineages. They were producing something that neither lineage had individually contained, a quality she described in the assessment records as convergent amplification, a term she invented because no existing vocabulary covered the phenomenon she was observing. Convergent amplification, the darkness in 2 bloodlines meeting in a single body and producing more than the sum of what had gone into it. She documented this with the thoroughness it required. She noted in the formal assessment record that the implications for the long-term force capacity of the Sith lineage were significant. She did not note how it felt to stand in front of a 4-year-old child and measure force sensitivity that exceeded anything she had encountered in the adult exile population. The unattributed citations appeared first in year 17. A formal treatise produced by one of the exile practitioners, not one of her 11 script-literate apprentices, but a practitioner who had access to the technical appendices through the communal record, presenting a refined version of the amulet persistence methodology, as if the refinement had emerged from their own research program. The foundational technique, the 43-page appendix, the core insight about living subjects as anchoring mediums, reframed, reterminologized, and presented without reference to their origin. The notation in her working journal, The persistence methodology appears in Practitioner D's formal treatise under different terminology. The technique is functionally identical. No attribution. The notation is 15 words beyond the colon, specific, precise. 7 months later, a second instance, a different practitioner, a different application. The Bloodline assessment framework she had developed for the integration program appearing in a governance proposal, as if it had emerged from the governance structure itself, rather than from the researcher who had designed it. The notation: assessment framework in the territorial governance proposal. Unattributed. The second instance. 2 fewer than the first. Year 20, a third instance, the most significant and the most direct. A practitioner presenting an alchemical technique to the Exile Council as an original development, demonstrating it in a formal session attended by Paul and the senior exile practitioners. The technique was a specific application of the force tissue modification methodology from Volume 3, modified slightly in its external form, but identical in its foundational mechanics. She attended the session. She watched the demonstration. The notation in the working journal that evening: third instance. 2 words. The training was working. Entry by entry, notation by notation. She was learning not to care. The process was visible in the diminishing word count. 15 words, 11 words, 2 words. A graph of diminishing response to something that had mattered and was being systematically reduced to something that didn't. Whether this was discipline or loss, the tomes do not say. Whether she knew the difference by year 20, the tomes also do not say. Paul requested a formal meeting on the 11th of Sirach Vorn, year 19. Not an informal visit to the laboratory. A formal session, conducted in the governance hall, with the administrative record keeper present, and the proceedings logged in the official capacity that Paul reserved for matters of institutional significance. The subject of the meeting was succession planning. Specifically, the question of which of the exile practitioners, and later which of the hybrid offspring when they reached maturity, would be designated as Paul's formal apprentice and eventual successor as Dark Lord. The governance structure had been functioning on the implicit understanding that Paul's authority was absolute and indefinite, and the empire had grown to a point where indefinite was no longer a functional planning assumption. Paul wanted a framework. She produced one within a week, 40 pages. The criteria for succession assessment, the training structure for designated apprentices, the governance transfer protocols, the mechanisms for dispute resolution if the succession was contested. Complete, implementable, drawing on the Bloodline assessment data and the apprentice development records she had been maintaining since year 3. Paul reviewed it. His response: logged in the formal administrative record, accepted in full, the single nod, her notation in the working journal: nothing. The succession framework appears in the formal administrative record and nowhere in the tomes. She produced 40 pages for the governance of the thing she had built and did not record a single private word about it. This is the loudest silence in Volume 8. A woman who had been documenting her own experience with sustained attention for 19 years, who had recorded the smell of the Coruscant archive, the texture of clay under her approval mark, the way Vthcas left Vthcas outside the laboratory entrance, wrote nothing about the day she formally designed the system by which the Empire would continue after its founders were gone. As if it didn't touch her. As if the question of what happened after her had already been resolved into something that no longer required feeling. The afternoon walk happened on the 3rd of Morith, year 21. It is recorded in a single entry in the working journal, unusual in format, longer than the surrounding entries, written in a slightly different cadence that suggests she wrote it continuously rather than in the segmented way she typically produced the technical documentation. She walked the valley alone for the first time since year 12. 9 years, the valley had changed, not in its physical geography. The rock formations, the dust, the particular quality of the silence were the same. The change was in what the Force carried here now. What she had called the unformed hunger in the earliest volumes, the dark side before it had names and shapes, and the accumulated weight of everything that had been done in its presence, had organized itself into something different, something layered. The dead were in the ground here now. Exile practitioners who had not survived the wars, native Sith of high force sensitivity, who had been interred according to the tradition she had documented, and, in some cases, redesigned. Ritual had been performed above them. The alchemical work had happened in proximity to this ground for nearly 2 decades. The Nexus had absorbed all of it. She stood in the valley's center, the standing point, where Pal had received the king priest's submission at the ceremony she had designed, and recorded what she felt. The entry reads, "The Nexus is organized." Where the early assessment noted diffuse and undirected force concentration without structured channels, the current state shows clear directional patterning, consistent with sustained ritual, reinforcement and alchemical saturation. The hunger quality is retained but is no longer unformed. It has a shape. The shape resembles, more than anything, intention. Intention. The darkness had developed something that resembled intention. She walked the valley for 2 more hours after writing this entry. The record does not describe those 2 hours. It returns to the notation after them with, "Return to the complex at last light. Work tomorrow. The 5th generation amulet trials. 2 hours in the valley. 9 years after she had stopped going. And the record gives her 2 sentences before returning to the work schedule. What happened in those 2 hours? What she felt standing inside the organized darkness of a nexus she had helped to shape, whether the intention she had identified in its structure resembled anything. She recognized from somewhere older than this world. The tomes do not say. The working journal entry ends. The next morning's entry begins. The 5th generation amulet trials. The work continues. The 1st generation hybrid children were being taught in a chamber on the eastern side of the temple complex. She passed the chamber on the way back from the valley. That evening, not her usual route through the complex, a deviation of perhaps 40 steps from the most direct path, unexplained in any record. The chamber door was partially open. Through it, 6 children, ages 5 through 9, seated on floor mats in the low light of late afternoon, with an older exile practitioner conducting a lesson in force concentration exercises. The kind of foundational training that began early, before the child could fully articulate what they were learning, building the pathways in the body and mind that later instruction would run through. 5 of the 6 children were engaged with the lesson. The 6th, seated at the back of the group, slightly apart, a girl of approximately 7, was not following the exercise. Instead, reading. A thin clay tablet held in both hands, tilted toward the remaining light from the high window, her attention completely absorbed in whatever the surface contained. Not one of the official lesson materials. Those were standardized, and she knew their formats. Something else. Where the child had obtained it was not clear. She stopped in the doorway. This is not in the working journal. It is not in the formal administrative record. It does not appear in any of the 11 volumes that survive from this period in its intended location. It appears in a marginal note on a page in Volume 8 that concerns the 5th generation amulet trials. A technical page, dense with measurement data and methodology adjustments, completely unrelated to children or education or the Eastern Chamber or anything that happened on the 3rd of Marath. The note is in the smallest handwriting in Volume 8, smaller than anything else on the page, written sideways in the margin, the way the early observations had always been written, the involuntary ones, the ones that arrived without deciding to, that didn't belong in the official record but, found their way in through the edges. It reads, "One of the children was reading. She held the tablet the way you hold something you found rather than something you were given. I watched longer than I intended to." 3 sentences. She had not written a marginal observation in 6 years. The handwriting is slightly different from the surrounding text. Not less controlled, but different in quality, as if a different part of the hand was doing the work. The part that had written the Vthcas observations and the sky color notations and the note about NK7 saying the vault was inside him. That part had been quiet for 6 years. It surfaced for 3 sentences on a technical page about amulet trials and then went quiet again. She watched longer than she intended to. This is the most unguarded line in Volume 8, possibly in the entire later tomes. A sentence with no methodology behind it, no strategic purpose, no documentation function. Just the truth of a moment, that she had stopped and looked and stayed looking past the point where looking served any purpose she could name. The child reading in the back of the group, slightly apart from the others, attention completely absorbed. She does not record what the child was reading. She does not record whether she entered the chamber or continued past it. The marginal note ends. The technical page continues. The amulet trial measurements resume in the clean, efficient hand of the Volume 8 researcher, and the marginal observation sits beside them in smaller letters, not quite touching the main text, not quite separate from it. There is an image that accumulates through Volume 8 without ever being directly described. It assembles itself from the inventory entries and the unattributed citation notations and the succession framework that generated no private record and the 2 hours in the valley that produced 2 sentences and the marginal note about the child reading. The image is this: a woman standing at the edge of everything she built. Not outside it. She is not excluded, not imprisoned, not prevented from moving through any part of the structure she had designed. The corridors are accessible. The chambers are open. The practitioners who run their derivative research from her foundational methodology greet her with the deference owed to someone whose position in the hierarchy is clear and senior. She can enter any room in the Empire, and yet, the Empire runs on her systems the way a body runs on its skeleton. The skeleton is essential and completely interior, and nobody thinks about it while they're moving. The Bloodline program matches pairings through her criteria. The amulet methodology fills the communal record under other names. The succession framework Paul accepted in full sits in the administrative archive, 40 pages of her thinking, governing the future of the thing she had spent 20 years building, unsigned. She is the foundation. Foundations are not inhabited, they are built on. The children in the Eastern Chamber are the first generation of what her architecture had produced. Force-sensitive beyond any prior measurement, hybrid of the 2 bloodlines she had brought together, by doctrine and design. They will become practitioners of traditions she created. They will use terminology she invented. They will work within theoretical frameworks she constructed before they were born. They will not know her name, not because it will be erased, because foundations don't have names. Oh, they have functions. The function of a foundation is to hold everything above it in place and remain invisible while doing so. She had known this was the work. Oh, she had chosen this work with full awareness. Oh, whether she had understood, when she made the choice, what it would feel like to stand inside the finished structure and find no room in it shaped like herself, whether the inventory entries and the two-word citation notations and the wordless succession record were the documentation of someone who had accepted this, or someone who was training themselves to accept it, or someone who had not yet fully processed the difference between building something and inhabiting it. The tomes do not say. The valley entry says the nexus feels like intention now. The marginal note says she watched longer than she intended. The working journal opens the next morning to the 5th generation amulet trials, scheduled and ready. The day's work laid out in the clear notation of someone who knows exactly what they are doing. Outside in the eastern chamber, the children are learning. One of them, somewhere, is still reading. The record changes here. It is necessary to say this directly, because everything preceding this point has been built on her documentation, her script, her categories, her chosen absences, and deliberate inclusions. The tomes are a primary source of extraordinary depth, and their limitations are the limitations she selected. What could be seen from inside her perspective, and what she decided to record of what she saw. From this point forward, the record shifts. What follows comes from secondary sources, fragments, testimonies, attendance logs, a single preserved historical account written 3 generations after her disappearance by a scholar who had access to witnesses she did not. These sources are imperfect in ways the tomes, for all their strategic silences, were not. They contain the distortions of memory, the compressions of time, the particular inaccuracies that occur when people try to describe someone who made them feel something they still cannot entirely name. They also contain something the tomes cannot contain: her from the outside, the person others experienced when she entered a room, when she left one. What remained in the air after the door closed, and the people inside turned to each other and said, or did not say, because some things are communicated without being spoken. That 3 accounts, 3 angles, one subject who would not have recognized herself in any of them, and who would have found this fact both predictable and, in some register she had been training herself out of for 2 decades, quietly devastating. The first account, Ron Kai. His full designation in the administrative records is Ron Kai Vel Ossith, the hyphenated form indicating hybrid birth, the Vel Ossith suffix placing him in the 3rd bloodline cohort of the integration program. Born in year 11 of the exile reckoning to a Sith mother designated high priority in the original survey, and an exile father who did not survive the Veritas conflict's final phase. By the time he was interviewed, 31 years after her disappearance, by a scholar whose name does not survive in the fragment, he was in his mid-40s and held the senior alchemical position at what had become the primary research complex on Zeost, a practitioner of considerable reputation, someone whose work in forced tissue modification was, by the standards of the era, exceptional. He had spent 2 years in informal proximity to her laboratory between the ages of 14 and 16. Not as a formal apprentice. The apprentice structure she had developed required literacy in her script, and he had not yet achieved it at 14. As something less formal and more present, a young practitioner who had demonstrated unusual force sensitivity in the Convergent amplification range, who had been assigned to the complex for assessment, and who had discovered that if he arrived at the laboratory before the opening hour and made himself useful without requiring attention, he was permitted to remain. He described this arrangement 3 decades later with a specificity that suggested the 2 years had organized themselves into permanent clarity in his memory. She did not teach me in any formal sense. What she did was work in my presence, which was different. She asked questions while she worked, not to me, not to anyone in the room specifically, just into the air of the space, the way you might speak a calculation aloud to help your own thinking. But the questions were not calculations. I spent a long time trying to describe this accurately. They were the questions underneath the work. Not how does this technique function, but why does this technique function? And what does the fact that it functions this way tell us about the nature of the thing we are applying it to? The interviewer asked whether she seemed aware that he was listening. A pause in the account before the response. She was always aware of everything in the room. That was the thing about her presence that you felt before you understood it. Nothing in her vicinity went unregistered. Whether she chose to respond to what she registered was a different question. But the awareness was constant. She asked questions the way other people breathed, without noticing she was doing it, or rather, as if the noticing and the questioning were the same single action. He was asked what she spoke about, when she did address him directly. Methodology. Always methodology. Not what I had done, but how I had reasoned my way to doing it. She was interested in the pathway more than the destination. Once I produced a result she found genuinely interesting, I had modified the application interval on the 4th generation amulet technique and achieved better saturation, and she asked me to describe my reasoning for the interval change. I described it. She listened completely. Then she asked me 3 questions about assumptions I had made without recognizing them as assumptions. By the end of the 3rd question, I understood that my result was correct, and my reasoning had 3 structural errors in it that would produce failures in approximately 1 in 5 applications. She had seen all 3 errors while I was still describing the success. The interviewer asked whether this was frightening. It was the most useful thing anyone had ever done for me. Frightening is the wrong word. It was clarifying, in the way that precision is clarifying. You could not be imprecise around her without it becoming visible. Not because she corrected you loudly, because the quality of her attention made imprecision uncomfortable in your own body before she said a word. One final question. What did he remember most in the long retrospective of 30 years? He answered without pause. She always finished what she was writing before she looked up, no matter who entered the room, no matter what they said. The sentence being completed first, always. As if the record had a claim on her attention that nothing else could interrupt until it was satisfied. I thought about this for years afterward. I eventually decided it was not habit, it was belief. She believed that an incomplete sentence was a kind of debt, that you owed the thought its full expression before you owed anything to the person standing in front of you. He paused. I don't know if this is a thing to admire or to mourn, perhaps both. The second account, the attendance record. The scribe's name is not preserved. The position is keeper of formal attendance records for the Exile Council's governance sessions, a role that passed through 3 successive holders during the period in question, the third of whom, maintained the records with unusual notational specificity that has made them valuable to later scholars. The third scribe, designated in cross-referenced administrative documents only as Council Scribe 3, kept attendance records that went beyond the standard binary of present or absent. In margins and supplementary notations, this scribe recorded behavioral observations about council members that had no formal function but appear to have been the product of someone who spent long hours watching people in meeting rooms and found the watching interesting. Sorzus Syn appears in these supplementary notations 27 times across a 6-year period. The notations are consistent enough to constitute a portrait. She attended every formal council session during this period. Not most, everyone. The attendance record shows no absences across 73 sessions, a consistency that no other council member, including Paul, matched. She never spoke in them. 27 notations, 6 years, 73 sessions. In none of the supplementary observations does Council Scribe 3 record her as having made a verbal contribution to any proceeding. The formal minutes of the sessions confirm this. Her name appears in the attendance record and nowhere in the discussion record, which should logically be impossible for a senior practitioner attending every session across 6 years. What the scribe recorded instead, she wrote throughout every session, not the record. The official record-keeping was the scribe's function. Something separate. Her own documentation. In the script that the scribe noted, no other present party appeared able to read. The scribe observed, across multiple sessions, that she wrote continuously from the session's opening to its close, pausing only when specific topics arose. The scribe noted 3 categories that produced pauses: Bloodline program reports, alchemical research updates, and any discussion touching on the northeastern territories. During these pauses, the scribe recorded. She did not write and did not speak. She listened. With the quality of attention the scribe described in a notation from year 22 as the complete attention of someone who already knows the answer to the question being discussed and is listening to understand why the others don't. The scribe recorded one additional observation, appearing in the final year of the notations, from a session in year 24. She arrived before any other council member and was already writing when the session opened. When the session closed and the others departed, she remained seated and continued writing. I remained to complete my own record. When I finished and stood to leave, she had not moved. I do not know how long she remained after I departed. The chamber was occupied only by her when I closed the door. The chamber, occupied only by her, writing in a script no one else present could read, in a room that had emptied around her, for a duration the record cannot measure. This is the image the attendance record preserves. Not power, not authority, not the architect of the foundational doctrine that was running every system in the empire being built above her. A woman alone in a room after everyone else has left, still completing a sentence. The third account, the confrontation. The historical fragment containing this account dates to approximately 3 generations after her disappearance. The scholar who recorded it had access to at least 2 individuals who had direct knowledge of the event, whether as witnesses or as recipients of first-hand accounts from witnesses, cannot be determined from the surviving text. The unnamed practitioner had been working with the amulet persistence methodology for 18 months. Not a new practitioner. Someone with considerable experience, someone who had been producing functional results for over a year and had, according to the fragment, begun treating the technique as sufficiently understood to justify independent modification. Specifically, the practitioner had adjusted the anchoring phase of the methodology, reducing its duration on the grounds that the full duration was inefficient, given their particular force application approach. The results had been initially indistinguishable from the standard methodology. Over time, instability had developed in the produced amulets, not immediately detectable, not visible in the short-term saturation measurements, but present in the force structure of the objects in ways that would produce failure under sustained use, the kind of failure that occurred not in the laboratory but in application, not in controlled conditions but in the field, in the hands of practitioners who had been given objects they had been told were reliable. How many objects had been distributed before the instability was identified? The fragment does not specify. She identified it. The method of identification is not described. Whether through direct assessment of a distributed amulet, through anomalies in the saturation data she reviewed as part of her ongoing oversight of derivative research, or through some other avenue, the account does not say. What it records is that she identified the instability, traced it to the modified methodology, and requested a meeting with the practitioner responsible. The fragment describes the meeting from the perspective of someone who was present in an adjacent chamber and heard the exchange through a partially open doorway. This is important to note. This is sound through a door, filtered through one person's memory, and then through the scholar's reconstruction 3 generations later. Every layer of distance acknowledged. What reached the adjacent chamber was not raised voices. It was her voice alone for an extended duration. Speaking in the continuous, precise cadence that Ron Kai had described as the questions underneath the work. Not what happened, but why it happened, and what the why revealed about every assumption, that had been operating invisibly beneath the modified approach. The witness in the adjacent chamber could not follow the technical content with full comprehension. What they recorded was the structure. Question, pause, question, pause. Each question building on the previous. Each pause the space where an answer should have been and apparently was not. Not because the practitioner refused to answer. Because the questions were structured such that answering one correctly required first acknowledging that a prior assumption had been wrong, and acknowledging that required acknowledging the one before it. And by the 3rd or 4th question, the entire architecture of the practitioner's confidence in their modification had been systematically disassembled through their own responses to questions they had not understood were connected. The fragment's description, the practitioner later said they had expected fury and received instead a kind of precision that made fury seem merciful. Fury could be endured. This required the practitioner to understand, in sequence and completely, every specific way their confidence had been built on errors they should have identified before proceeding. There was no comfort in the explanation. It was not designed to comfort. It was designed to ensure the error would not be made again, whether by this practitioner or by anyone who heard the account secondhand. The fragment suggests the error was not made again. What happened after the explanation ended? Whether the distributed amulets were recalled, whether the subjects who had been used in the modified anchoring process were located and assessed for the instability's effects on the living tissue that had served as anchoring medium. The account does not record. The fragment ends with the practitioner leaving the chamber. It does not record whether she left the chamber after them, or remained inside it, or what expression she carried when the exchange was over. What the witness in the adjacent chamber remembered, when the scholar interviewed them decades later, was not the content of what had been said. It was the silence after. Oh. When the practitioner left, the sound of her voice stopped. The silence that followed was not empty. It had a weight. Oh. As if the precision of everything she had said was still present in the room, organized and complete, and the silence was simply what that precision sounded like when no one was speaking it aloud. Of these three accounts, three angles on the same subject. Oh. A young alchemist who spent 2 years watching someone work and remembered. 30 years later, the debt she believed she owed to incomplete sentences. Oh. A scribe who watched her write in a room that emptied around her and documented the quality of her solitude with the same care she brought to everything she documented herself. Oh. A witness in an adjacent room who remembered not the words but the weight of the silence after them. None of these three people had read the tomes. Oh. None of them had access to the crossed-out entry in Volume 4, or the marginal note about the child reading, or the Vthcas notation, or the single Sith word written below 3 survey designations. Oh. On the evening of the 8th of Velnarash, they knew only what they had seen from the outside. Oh. What they saw. Someone whose attention was total and whose presence was complete, and who finished every sentence before looking up, as if the record had a prior claim on her that could not be, interrupted. What they could not see from their positions at the edges of her work, whether anyone inside that complete and total presence was still waiting for something. Oh. Whether the sentence she always finished before looking up was the sentence she actually wanted to be writing. Oh. Whether the silence in the room after the practitioner left was the silence of someone satisfied with what had been said, or the silence of someone who had said the only thing available to them, and, was sitting inside the distance between that and everything else. Ron Kai, when the interview concluded, had added one final observation unprompted. Oh. As if it had been waiting through the entire conversation and had decided at the last moment that it required saying. I never saw anyone bring her something she didn't already know. Oh, not in 2 years. Every question I asked, every result I showed her, every problem I brought into that laboratory, she had been there before me. This was not a performance. It was simply true. Oh, and I have thought sometimes about what that must have been like. To be that far ahead of every conversation. Oh, to have no one in the room who could reach you where you actually were. He had said this, then stopped. The scholar recording the interview noted that he did not appear to expect a response. Oh, he was simply marking something that seemed, after 30 years of thinking about it, worth saying aloud at least once, even if only for the record.